What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. Um, this one's entitled Why Your Team Keeps Losing. This is about community, family, and actually teams, What these thoughts are pretty much sparked by a hangout that I had earlier, that I was on earlier, that BGS Itmore had. Now, there are reasons why your team keeps losing, and it's because you've cultivated a losing culture, and because you've cultivated a losing culture, you're constantly in the same losing cycle, and you don't want to break the cycle because of the effort that it's going to take, or because of the domino effect of the efforts that it takes to become a winner. And what I mean by that is very simple. Uh, your team keeps losing because you know you don't understand the importance of practice. Fundamentals. And what I mean by that is people say practice makes perfect. Not necessarily true. Father always told me perfect practice makes perfect. So if you do something halfway when you're practicing it, you're going to do something halfway when it's actually go time. That's just usually how it goes. So because of your half-hearted effort, you wind up with half-hearted results. Now, that actually spills into having a half-hearted culture because it's not that it's not that important, right? We're gonna show up when it's time to show up, but not really because you know you don't really have a game plan that you stick with. Because if you halfway do the game plan, you're gonna halfway commit to it. When it happens, you're only half as good as your opponent, who's actually practiced for the full stress of the situation. Now, thus, why your team keeps losing, why the culture keeps losing. Now, on top of that, we're not admitting that the teams are set up equally. Just because you have a team doesn't mean there's equity. Everybody has a position and a role, and you're not winning. Your team's losing because people do not really want to accept their position and their role. Everybody on the team isn't equal. What I mean by that is, if you watch any sport or if you look at any business, there are people who are going to make more money than others because they produce more than other people. But on a losing team, you want to be equitable. So your best people get treated like your worst people, and your worst people get treated like your best people to keep it fair and even. And the problem with that is you give your role players the reign to control your stars. So when you're actually in the game, there's no unity because your role player wants to be the winner, wants to be the hero when they don't have the skill set to win like that, to be the hero. And I'm gonna get into this part of it right now, which creates a losing game within the game. Because when you're facing opposition, you're basically in a situation where the team that you're facing is on the same page. The team that you're on that's losing isn't. Because the role players wanted to be the star so bad that they sabotaged the star. And the star wants to win just like the role players want to win, But there's more role players than there are stars. So guess what they do? They put the star in a no-win situation. They put them behind the eight ball because instead of sticking to the game plan, they got a game plan from the coach, and they decided to veer from that because they wanted to see their name in the paper. So the other team just has to apply pressure and let you beat yourself. That's how a lot of people win because they let you make it, they manage their mistakes and they let you and they maximize you making mistakes. And the reason you're making mistakes is because you're not unified. So now that you're not unified, now you got now you're looking at the star like what you gonna do? But the star's in the game and the star already knows that there's really nothing I can do with you as my teammates. Because I can make some great individual efforts, but if I get you back into this game, you're gonna freeze me out, so we might not win anyways. I can make great individual efforts and actually win this game, but that doesn't mean that will be in spite of you, and you're not gonna like that. You celebrate the victory, but when people say, "Oh man, you came through for us, you did it," then back to the drawing board on sabotaging the next win. That's how you get the coaches type situations. What I mean by that is somebody kills the star. Because everybody wants to win and everybody wants to be known as a winner and everybody wants to elevate themselves and be a champion. But you find yourself in that position, and I'm gonna tell you how it works out for anybody who watches a team sport. There, when people evaluate talent, this is why the waters are so murky and muddy. Because it's not about evaluating talent from winning teams, it's about evaluating talent from losing teams. And what I mean by that is, when somebody's on a winning team, they are, if they're a role player, they're looked at as better than they are because the winning culture makes them look good because winning always looks good. That's why you want somebody who knows how to win. But see, the problem is when you get to the big leagues, it's already understood that everybody's not going to come from a winning culture. So what's more important is talent. Because even a person from a losing culture wants to win. If they were in the right situation, they would be a winner. So this is where the talent difference comes in. And this is why you have a lot of individualism. Because even the person who's a star on a losing team is probably more talented than that person who's a role player that looks like a star on a winning team. So when you start going pound for pound, skill set for skill set, person for person, you realize, oh man, this person's on an undefeated team and they're great at what they do, but they're not better than this person who's on a 500 team who has to do everything because they only got to do is game plan for that particular person because all their teammates don't really want to win. They want to be the star. So you find yourself um, in a losing culture. And you get mad because you realize that if if the world gets wind of the skill set of your teammate, they're going to get plucked from that situation and you're going to be stuck there with the losers. So you don't want that to happen. A lot of people on that team don't want that to happen. So, that's what they do. If they're playing basketball, they're not going to pass the starter ball. You know, they're not going to run through the complete play fully to get the best opportunity to score. They're playing football, you know, they'll block for the other role players, but they won't block for the star. And you see this all the time, even at the highest level of sports. Teamwork, family, same thing. You know, this is why use a football reference. If you watch the Washington Redskins over the last 2-3 years, people talk about RG3 being fragile, which is understandable, and Kirk Cousins being a better quarterback, which is understandable. But if you watch them long enough, you realize their offensive line didn't block for RG3 like that. They blocked for Kirk Cousins like that. But the problem is now that the situation was not optimal for RG3 because he was getting his head knocked in, and Kirk Cousins wasn't getting his head knocked in at that same type of rate. You gotta say they respect or want Kirk Cousins more than they did RG3. Just understandable. The problem is the organization didn't really drink the Kool-Aid on Kirk Cousins because if they would have, they would have paid him since they feel like he replaced RG3, but they didn't because talent-wise, RG3 is still better, and adversity-wise, they can't see Kirk Cousins being as talented as RG3 because if they stop blocking for him, it's going to go downhill. So, and now that he doesn't have the pieces that he used to have, you're about to see how good he actually is. So, this is why I said you could be in the same place, winning culture, but the truth is going to come to the table at some point. But if he succeeds, then they'll be like, okay, we got you. If he fails, they're going to blame him and say he wasn't really ready. But truth be told, the organization was built around undermining its leaders. So this is why your team keeps losing. Because when you undermine your leaders and you have this losing culture, you undermine your success. And nobody wants to be hitched to a loser forever and a day. They just don't. So then you find people, opportunistically going into your company because they figure they can poach more money out of you because they already know you're not going to win. So why not just get paid the bullshit? And then you got people who are with you who are just looking for a way out. They're going to leave you at the first opportunity because they already know that you're not going to help them advance. So why commit to you when you're not committing to helping them advance? So this is why your teams are losing. You know what I mean? And ultimately, changing the culture is a bigger problem because of the domino effect. Because if you change the culture, that goes from top to bottom. And when you start making changes, you start realizing people in your organization, your team, have to go because they can't operate in a winning culture. They need the chaos. They need the dysfunction. They need the how can I say this? Chaos, dysfunction. They need the sorrow to get ahead because that's actually the dynamic that they operate best in. If you start to have a winning culture, they know that it's going to expose all of their flaws and they're going to wind up getting booted because they can't handle the pressure of maintaining and elevating. So this is why your team keeps losing. That's my thoughts. I'm out. Peace.